Welcome back. This is part 2 of the BVI Navigation Seminar. We will be covering cruising and anchorage guides and also navigation electronics. Now, on to cruising and anchorage guides. Here is a picture of the cruising guide to the Virgin Islands. Notice down at the bottom right, this is the 18th edition. If you're buying one, you want to purchase the most recent edition, which is currently the 19th edition. Although you can't see it well in the picture, note that I have a bunch of colored tabs at the top. I've marked the pages relative to my stops along the way. This makes it easy to find the page I want. The cruising guide uses a set of waypoints that they define. This page shows some of them. To make my life easier, I used their waypoints during my planning and then added my own waypoints only as needed. The Cruising Guide Company also offers some downloads for free, so you can get these waypoints in a spreadsheet form or in a GPX form, GPS exchange format that can be imported in a chart plotter. Here's an example page from the Cruising Guide. You'll notice a chart on the left, an aerial view on the top right, and a textual description of piloting on the bottom. You may want to pause here and look the chart over a bit. We will be using the baths in our planning exercise with OpenCPN. In particular, notice the moorings, that are right there, and notice the waypoint labeled BV401 that is directly east of Spring Bay, and we'll be using those things in our exercise. You can also get guides in addition to the cruising guide. Here is a Virgin Anchorage guide. It provides aerial views of anchorages and harbors. I only used it occasionally. The cruising guide generally had all that I needed. Let's have a look at some of the navigational electronics that you may have on the boat. You will have a depth gauge. This will indicate how much clearance you have under the boat. You'll have a speedometer. This provides your speed through the water. Depending on currents and waves, this speed can vary considerably from the speed you're actually making towards your destination, which is called speed over ground. You will have at least one GPS, probably in the form of a chart plotter, and you may have several GPSs if you bring your own. The GPS will show you speed over ground. If you bring your computer with OpenCPN loaded and an external GPS that you can connect it to, you will have computer-assisted navigation. Unless you have a waterproof and ruggedized laptop, I wouldn't bring OpenCPN. However, OpenCPN is great for pre-planning at home. Your boat will have a chart plotter. This combines the GPS with marine charts to give you a real-time view of navigation. In all probability, you'll have one or more phones with you. The Compass app on your phone generally provides longitude and latitude readouts, and these are from GPS. You can also load marine navigation apps on your phone or tablet. Remember though, you need a waterproof case or your phone may have a very short life. You should also probably have some kind of mount if you actually want to use your phone or tablet as a chart plotter, or it could easily end up in the ocean. In an emergency, you can always duct tape it down. There are a number of navigational electronics you probably won't have on your boat. These can be really cool, and they're covered in the USPS piloting and AP courses. However, you can get by without them in the BVI. Here is a simple depth gauge. Charts show depth soundings from the waterline. Depth gauges can be set to measure depth from the waterline, from the bottom of the boat, or from the bottom of the keel, or actually a variety of other measurements. Ask during your boat checkout how your gauge is set. If they can't tell you, you may want to have a fishing weight and some line that you can lower over the side of the boat until it hits the bottom, and then raise it back up and measure how many feet from the bottom to the waterline. You can then compare that measurement to the readout of the depth gauge. Many people prefer to have 0 set at the bottom of the keel. Here are some GPS receivers. The one on the left is a handheld unit. The other two are chart plotters. Each individual GPS and chart plotter has its own unique controls and menu system. On your boat, there should be a manual for the chart plotter that is installed. On the chart plotter, poke the buttons and look at the menus on your first evening on the boat. Figure out how to set or import your waypoints and routes. If you're left scratching your head, refer to the manual or ask someone else in the flotilla. Relative to importing waypoints and routes, this is a hit and miss kind of effort depending on the chart plotter and depending on whether you have a memory stick or a memory card. So it's always good to have a backup of printed longitude and latitudes so you can manually enter them if the import doesn't work. When you get ready to use the chart plotter to navigate, here are some steps. First of all, make sure that the electricity is turned on for your electronics. And verify that the proper initialization and the satellite reception are adequate. I'll show you this in just a minute. However, it may take anywhere from 1 to 5 minutes to initialize your chart plotter, so it's good to do that ahead of time. Then either enter or verify your pre-planned routes and waypoints. Make sure they're present and available to you. And then select and activate an initial waypoint or route after departing the dock. It's usually best to start your route after you're out into the harbor. Otherwise, your chart plotter may route you through the dock or across land, places you don't necessarily want to go. Then you want to follow the route and monitor your cross-track error or the amount that you're off course and make those corrections as needed. And then always keep a lookout. GPS doesn't know about other boats and may actually, under some circumstances, route you through the middle of an aid of navigation that you're using as a waypoint. Here's a picture of a GPS acquiring satellites. It's showing 8 bars, one for each of the satellites acquired, with the height being how strong the signal. You will want to have at least 3 bars with reasonably good signals before you start navigating. Phones and tablets will typically not have this screen, but might display a message such as unable to acquire satellites if the satellites are not adequate. Here is one example of a readout from a chart plotter while underway. You might want to pause here and look at the information that is available. To give you an idea of how the navigational equipment might be arranged on a boat, here's a picture of one of the moorings boats from the 2019 BVI flotilla. If you look at the port wheel, you can see some black panels to the left. These are the autopilot, anchor control, and a multi-page readout. One of the pages on the multi-page readout is the depth gauge, and that is what I usually displayed. You can't see it very well, but directly in front of the port wheel is the ship's compass right here. In the center console near the floor is the chart plotter. You'll notice that you can't really see the chart plotter very well if you're manning the helm. In fact, if the sun is shining in the wrong direction, you may have to have someone laid down on the deck to be able to read the display. To set waypoints or activate routes, you'll likely have to set on the deck to work the controls. It is very useful to have multiple people that can work the chart plotter. This is the end of part 2. Watch part 3 next.